Hello and welcome to my Minecraft Bedrock commands tutorial series. In this episode we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of showing you one command type, I'm going to be covering all 32 ease types. If you haven't already watched my episode on the /camera command, I highly recommend doing so you can understand what we're on about today. Well, there's no time like the present, so let's get started. Whilst there are 32 different ease types, they're actually categorised much simpler than that. There are two main ones, which are linear and spring, and then we have 10 others that can also have 3 different variants, and those are quad, cubic, quart, quint, sine, expo, circ, bounce, back, and elastic. Each of those 10 can then be categorised into in, underscore, and then its name, or out, or in and out. I will be showing you all of these and how that relates. With each of these ease types, I'll also be sharing a diagram which will hopefully help you visualise how the camera moves. My setup today includes 32 different commands. All of them are the exact same apart from our ease type. This should hopefully give us some consistency and help us understand further what each of these ease types do. Our first ease type is linear, which is a nice smooth motion that goes from beginning to end at the same speed and stops exactly where the camera should be. Spring as an ease type is actually somewhat similar to linear, that it moves in a smooth motion, but it actually goes a little bit further than where the camera is supposed to go to and then snaps back. Next we move into our first of the 30 that have 3 different variants. So with this one, it's an in quad. What you'll notice with all of these is that with in quad, the unique effect will happen at the beginning of our ease, then at out, it'll happen at the end, and finally in out quad will have the effect at the beginning and the end of the movement. For in quad, it's quadratic, so that means it starts off very slowly and then it speeds up to the same consistency we expected before, whereas with out quad, we'll notice that it starts very fast and gets slower towards the end. And finally with in-out quad, it's slow at the beginning, smooth in the middle, and then slows down towards the end. Naturally, if quad was quadratic, then cubic, well, that is cubic. This is very similar to quad, except when we press the in cubic, it's an even slower start, and then it picks up the pace to what we expect. Out cubic, similar to out quad, so when I press the button, it's a regular start, but then a much slower finish than the out quad. And then in out cubic has a very slow start, a regular beginning, and then a slow end. The 3 quart ease types have an even more dramatic graph on how quickly the camera changes. So we'll see we've got an even slower start and then it really picks up the pace to get into position. Whereas with out quart, we have a much faster beginning and then an even slower end. And then finally in out quart, when we press this, a slow beginning, a faster middle, and then a slow end to get that camera in position. Each of these ease types have only really been variants of ones previously, and that's actually no different for our next one. In Quint really shows this by being our slowest so far. It almost looks as if at the beginning it's doing nothing, and then it does slide into place. Out Quint similarly starts very fast and then really slows down towards the end, and in out Quint we can see that slow beginning that almost looks like a stop, speeds up, and then finally comes to a slow stop. Considering how slow our changes got for our ease type in previous ones, the in sign actually looks relatively normal, but we can see there is somewhat of a slow start, and it does speed up, but it's not quite as slow as the other ones we've tried. Similarly, we can see that with out sign, that it's somewhat more regular, and then a very subtle slowdown at the end. And unsurprisingly, in out sign also demonstrates that same subtlety. Expo gets its name from exponential, which does mean naturally, again, we have a very slow start and then a rapid build, and finally it snaps into place really quickly. Similarly, for Out Expo, we see a quick beginning and then it slows down. And for In Out Expo, we see a slow beginning, a quick middle, and a slow end. Circ Sine's very similar to Expo in that it's a slow beginning and then snaps into place. However, it is a lot quicker and we can see it's more smooth in its transition. Which therefore means Out Circ is the opposite, so we have a fast beginning and then it slows to a stop. Which naturally means with In Out Circ we have a slow beginning, a much more rapid middle, and a slowed down end. Our next group is actually a lot more interesting than some of the others, and that's bounce. Bounce isn't actually a consistent line going up, instead it bounces back and forth. Now this is an in bounce, we'll see that bounce at the beginning of our camera ease. As we can see, it does snap into place, whereas with the out bounce, it's smooth at the beginning, and then once the camera meets its location, it does bounce back and forth a bit. Therefore, with in-out bounce, we have that bounce right at the beginning, and once it gets to the end, we also have it there. Back is similar to bounce in that it goes back on itself, but as we can see from the in-back, it's a much smoother transition. So rather than bouncing, it just goes back on itself once and then glides up smoothly. We can also see the same with out back, in that it moves slowly and smoothly, and then it goes too far and transitions back. And in out back, naturally, as with all our previous examples, shows both the in and the out at the same time. So we can see that smooth going back on itself, and then, yeah, we do meet where we expect. And our final one is elastic. With elastic, it's like it's being pulled back and then released and shot into the air. We can see that best with inelastic, where it slowly moves down a couple of times, pulled back, and we can see it fires straight up into the air to our final destination. Naturally, out elastic is the reverse of this, where we have a quick transition and then it snaps back and forth at the end. And finally, our last of our 32 ease types is in-out elastic. When I press this button, we see that snap back at the beginning, and then it shoots up and snaps into place at the end. As I'm sure you can see from all these ease types, there's a lot of customization with the /camera command that you can use to really help your players have unique moments in your maps. If you've enjoyed this episode but you haven't caught up with my /camera command episode, I really recommend checking that out next. But until next time, take care and may your picks never break.